You're listening to The Weekend Take. And now your host, Sean Schaefer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Weekend Take. I'm your host, Sean Schaefer. Stepping in to join us as an extra special guest this week is Christopher Schiller, who's writer, director, producer, entertainment attorney, and columnist for Script Magazine. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
So, Chris, as I'm sure you're aware, Disney reinstated James Gunn as the director for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, essentially welcoming him back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe after he was dismissed late last year following resurfacing of some old tweets that he had made that were found to be offensive or in poor taste and bad attempts at humor. Chris, what are your thoughts on this matter and how Disney's handled it? I mean, it seems very odd that they were so adamant taking this stance against the controversial comments of James Gunn like 10 years ago, which in 10 years, I mean, I look at myself 10 years ago and I'm a vastly different person than I am now. And I feel that, you know, he's probably the same way. But how do you feel about Disney welcoming James Gunn back into the fold of the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
It's a complex issue, and I do not envy Disney's position at all throughout the entire thing. I don't envy James Gunn's position at all throughout the whole thing either. But you have hit the nail on the head to some extent that who we were 10 years ago is different than who we are today. And if there's going to be growth of personal growth of any nature, you've got to be able to recognize that change happens from one point to another. And with James Gunn, he has admitted that years ago when he was early in his career, he was a provocateur. He would say things just to rattle the cages, not to diminish what he said or how it was taken. But once it was in the Twitterverse, it retained momentum, timing, and what is acceptable in both writing screenplays to sell and in what you said years ago, and would it be acceptable to say today. Those things change, and he suffered the consequences of time catching up to those statements. He also suffered the consequences of being a target of what are considered internet trolls who dredged these matters up just to stir up trouble. They definitely dug for these elements and used them against him and used them against Disney to kind of put a stumbling block in a huge conglomerate that actually is so big and needs so much public face to look like the Disney image that it was difficult for them to do anything other than react at the time to, oh my goodness, those were horrible statements. We're going to have to do something that shows that we take this seriously, especially in the current political environment. It is very difficult for a corporation to stand on principle without damaging those who are decent individuals otherwise. James Gunn, by every account of how he apologized, how he took what Disney dictated to him and saying, this is what we have to do, he understood, he stepped aside, he allowed them to take the script that he was working on and said, here, I'll give this to you without any problem, I'll step away if that's what you want. He was sorry he'd said the things that he had said. He understands how it looks. He never got offended. He never got defensive. It was always apologetic. It was always in great face of someone who really understood the impact of what had happened. And you have to respect someone who can do that, who can say, I made a big mistake years ago, and today it is influencing the structure of the political discussion, and I'm going to take the brunt of this because I said it. I'm not denying I said it. I'm not trying to make excuses for what I said. I can explain the situation as to what I said. I was a different person 10 years ago, but I did say those things. And so he has taken that high road of, I did it, and these are the consequences, I will take them. The interesting thing about corporates, especially in the Me Too environment and in the structure of zero tolerance, you step into a place where the franchise has to die for you to fully accept the entire role that Disney was stepping towards, saying zero tolerance, James Gunn's out, that's it. The next stage is all of the actors of Guardians of the Galaxy that I've heard of were supportive of James Gunn, and they all said, we'll have to think about whether we want to move forward with this project with someone else. Every director that they interviewed to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy knew this was a hot box to step into. That's not something that's easy to step. It's not easy to step into a $100 million, $150 million picture when you're not the originator of anything and you have to take that and carry that mantle. It's a difficult road to hoe because you could be the one who stumbles and every eye would look at you. You're the change. You did it. Mm-hmm. How the people and the public respond has also been a reflection back to Disney saying, well, without James Gunn, it won't be the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not sure if I'm going to go see it. So you've got the actors in support of James Gunn. You've got the audience showing their doubts about anything that's done without James Gunn's influence. You've got Disney, who is just trying to react properly to the whole thing. Nobody's made a mistake here. Everybody's doing things properly and in support of the people that they believe in. And the franchise won't survive moving forward the way that it should. Now, you've got the question, is the franchise worth accepting the responsibility of somebody who has said something bad? I am heartened by the fact that Disney said, we'll reevaluate this decision. He's taken remorse. He's taken responsibility for what he said. He has apologized profusely. Maybe that's enough. And let's see if we can patch this back together and keep the franchise moving forward for Volume 3 and see if we can still make money as a corporation, because that's our bottom line, but still not lose face, because we did strike him. We did hit him on the wrist. We did say, naughty boy, you shouldn't have done that. So is that enough to appease those in Disney and those who watch Disney to say, yes, you've taken responsibility, but I'll still go see your movie because James Gunn is back and he's the only one who can really put this party together. Now, it turns out that I am rooting for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to be a fine film because I want James Gunn to be able to say, I am a better person today than I was 10 years ago. And I want Disney to be able to say, we respect the sensibilities of people today who take offense to those types of things that were said 10 years ago. We show that we properly give that consideration, but we are still a business and we can move forward without the zero tolerance, shutting the doors, killing everything off, which is the only other option. So we've got to find that happy middle ground because corporate dollars have to be made. Some of that sounds cold when it's said out loud, but a lot of that is the situation we're in right now. Corporations have many hats to wear to serve their stockholders, their future, their licensing bids of all the films that they have in their vaults are all going to be affected. All of those factors are going to be affected by how they take this next step. And hopefully James Gunn wasn't just blowing smoke and he doesn't release new tweets that invert everything that he said, that he's fully remorseful. I doubt that that is the case. And I'm pulling for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 to be just as good as the first two films were, if not better, because there's a lot riding on it, both reputational-wise for Gunn and Disney and franchise-wise. And it affects an awful lot of stuff. I mean, yeah, it was a couple of tweets 10 years ago, and it's rattling this many cages. But there's got to be a way of being able to move forward with life. We don't just get one shot. We often find ourselves doing something wrong, stepping back, apologizing, moving forward, doing something right to make up for the times that we did things wrong. That's my personal opinion about it, is that we have to find some way of finding a road to the future through these bumps and distractions, paying the right respects, but also allowing people to grow as individuals.
In the interim between James Gunn's dismissal from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and now his being welcomed back, James Gunn took his talents elsewhere and landed himself at Warner Brothers with the DC Extended Universe and taking the helm and writing the script for what will be a sequel to the Suicide Squad. And because of Suicide Squad, this Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 that we've been talking about won't be actualized until the completion of this Suicide Squad sequel.
Disney is probably happier that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will be delayed because it allows more time of recovery. They can say, yes, we punished him. Yes, we put him back on. But that was so long ago. And if Suicide Squad 2 does well, then they're going to be fabulously happy that Gunn is on Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But if Suicide Squad 2 fails, there's a lot of potential as to why that would have happened, but it puts Disney in the situation of, well, did we get now a dud? He may be replaced because they lose confidence in him as a director after a failure of Suicide Squad 2. Anything can happen.
And so one of the concerns that I had for James Gunn, for Disney, for Guardians was, okay, what if even James Gunn can't salvage whatever dumpster fire DC has waiting for him with the Suicide Squad? Does that then parlay itself into a hit on the success of Guardians possibly, or a hit on, the potential for James Gunn? Now it's not so much of who he is as a person, but who he is from a bankability standpoint.
Yeah, and it's part and parcel of the industry as it stands, is that no decision is a final yes, no decision is a final no in a company in this industry if you plan on staying in the industry for very long, because everything changes. Popularities change, performances change, audiences' tastes change, and you've got to roll with all of those elements. And hopefully you've got your finger on the right pulses to know the direction that you need it to be in the 2 years it takes or more to make one of these blockbuster films.
It almost at one point felt like it was two sports teams making a trade, because Disney seemed to trade James Gunn to Warner Brothers and DC, and in return, they got Will Smith to be a genie.
Actually, that used to be the way that the Hollywood system worked. You had contract players, and so they were constantly trading back and forth. So maybe we're going to a version of that at this higher level of studio, big film, moving the chess pieces around, trying to find something that works. I mean, we want to keep him, but you can borrow him for that one film as long as you don't tarnish him and bring him back to us with better cachet. Keep his name out there because we can't use him for 2 years, but bring him back over here when you're done.
So we'll have to see. I am interested to see how this story plays out with James Gunn, both with Suicide Squad 2 and then with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 following up shortly after. But for James Gunn, it seems that, for lack of a better way to put it, that all's forgiven. He's been welcomed back into the family of Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now we just have to hope that he doesn't need to make any more bad jokes.
Yeah. We have to make sure that he doesn't kick any puppies or do anything untoward.
I want to thank you for contributing your thoughts and views on this matter with James Gunn.
Well, you're welcome. And anytime, I enjoy talking films. So, I would have probably had this conversation whether you were there or not. So I'm glad you were there.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you and I would have had this conversation whether there was a microphone in front of us or not. So I guess it's just better that we got it on microphone.
Yeah. And then other people can make fun of us for our opinions.
Exactly.
It'll live on the internet and we'll have to talk it down and apologize for it later.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you again, Chris. And I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That about wraps it up for us here this week on The Weekend Take. I want to thank Chris Schiller for stepping in and contributing his thoughts. The Weekend Take is on social media as well. We're on Twitter at Weekend Take. We're on Facebook at www.facebook.com/The Weekend Take. And please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/The Weekend Take, where for as little as $1, you can become a patron of The Weekend Take and get exclusive access to extended cuts of the episodes if you want to hear more of the conversation had this week and any of the previous weeks with some of our guests. So until next week, I hope you all enjoy your week ahead, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
You've been listening to The Weekend Take. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Google Play and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Visit our Patreon page to become a patron of The Weekend Take, and for as little as $1, you'll receive exclusive content and perks.